No, this is not a late April's Fool's joke. It's a very real football boot, and it's called the Nike Mercurial Superfly 10 AM95, which is a tribute to Nike's Air Max 95 sneaker from, you guessed it, 1995. And now, 30 years later, that iconic design from the sneaker is back, which is both kind of a good thing and also a little bit of a bad thing, which of course, I'll tell you all about. I'll show you what the boots look like in action, and hopefully at the end of the video, I'll help you decide if you want to buy this at unisportstore.com or not. Link's up there, by the way. Let's rock and roll. But let's start talking about the design, where Nike have obviously taken inspiration from that colorway of the iconic Air Max 95. But actually, this is not the first time they've done that. Back in 2017, I remember that as if it was yesterday, but the Hypervenom Phantom 3 also used this design and kind of just painted it on the boot. But this time, Nike have actually, leveled things up a little bit, because they've started with a regular Superfly 10, and then they've actually gone in and applied little strips and layers of basically silicone film to give you this layered physical effect, and also of course have these 4 different shades of gray to give you that gradient that we know from the sneakers. What they've also done is they've gone in underneath the grip knit actually and applied these, what seems to be the same silicone film material, these little neon yellow strips, again to replicate the look of those iconic eyelet lace loops from the sneakers. They're pretty cool. And the cool thing is that all the original design inspirations from the Air Max 95 sneaker are still here. So back in the day, the designers on the sneaker, they took inspiration from 2 sources. One was that the shoe was informed by nature, as they said, which sounded pretty cool, which meant that you have these 4 layers of soil that was eroded or washed away by the rain to gradually reveal the design of the sneaker. Hence the gradient, which is pretty cool. And then also, it took inspiration from the human body, which means that you have the neon eyelets here, or the lace loops, taking inspiration from the ribs, and then you have the laces and that mesh upper on the sneaker, or the grip knit upper on the boot, acting as the muscle fibers and the flesh binding everything together. So yeah, lots of storytelling here actually, and the elements are still there on the boot 30 years later. And actually, the AM95 Mercurial here has a lot of other little references to that OG sneaker, other than the main design, of course. You have this little Air Zoom logo tab on the collar, which is a nice interpretation of the original Air Max logo tab on the sneaker. You also have this on the Zoom Air unit, this graphic highlighting how Nike back in the day, in 1995, had a pressurized Zoom Air unit in the sneaker, and now in 2025, they still have a pressurized Zoom Air unit, but in their football boots. They also still have the Air Max. But that's another story, that whole 30-year journey, which is pretty cool. And while I'll be honest, I don't own a pair of the original sneakers myself, I think looking at the photos, and this of course, I do think that it's a nice tribute with attention to detail, and it's actually made as if the team behind it cared to go into detail and make it not right, but make it look right on a pair of football boots. And I definitely think that this looks better and more premium, more refined than the Superfly 9 Air Max Plus version. So I appreciate that. They care. I like it. But yeah, cool. It resembles the sneaker a lot, and it looks good and all that jazz. But unless you just want to buy it to put it on a shelf in your man cave and admire it every day, it kind of also has to feel good as a football boot on the pitch, right? Well, the good news is that out of all the paths that Nike could have taken to kind of replicate all of these elements from the sneaker, I think this is the least disturbing or obtrusive of the solution. Sure, they could have taken all the original elements and applied them to the upper, but that would have left the boot as a really unusable, chunky mess. That would feel awful on the pitch, and we don't want to go down that route. I think this whole silicone film, very thin layers works really well, because underneath those, it's just an actual Superfly 10 Elite, which means that it still is a grip knit forefoot. You have your atom knit midfoot and rear part. You have the fly knit collar here, and of course you have the outsole that's really aggressive and responsive with the Air Zoom unit in the forefoot. Gives this kind of squishy, really connected feel to the ground. And that also means that, it feels familiar. It's not exactly the same as a regular Superfly 10 Elite, because you do have that extra layer of silicone film here, where you don't really feel the grip knit on the toe of the boot. It's not bad, it's just a little bit more smooth, and I reckon that in wet conditions, it's not gonna be as grippy as I would ideally like it to. With that said, I also feel a difference on the midfoot here, where especially on the bottom, where the layers are a little bit thicker, because there are more of them, I do feel, it's not a gigantic difference, but I do just feel a little bit more structure, a little bit more hold and stability down on the bottom. And in a boot that's mostly just knit and textile, that's actually a welcome change. I appreciate that. So it's a little bit like of a mixed bag of goods, but overall, it's a Superfly 10. It feels like a football boot, as it should, and then it's just up to you if you can live with it feeling slightly different. But it's, you know, I could wear it in a match. I'd be cool with that. But Jay, what's bad about it? If it works like a football boot, looks like a sneaker, all is cool, then, well, here's the thing. This is a Superfly. It doesn't come as a Vapor 16 Elite. It comes as a Vapor 16 Pro, but I mean, I want the Elite experience, and for me, if it is to look like the sneaker back then, make it a low cut. Because in 95 sneakers didn't come with a collar, and it's cool, but would it have hurt you to make a Vapor instead of? So as for sneaker tributes go, I actually think that these are pretty solid. I'll also be honest though and say that I've always thought that, you know, sneaker designs on football boots have looked a little bit weird. So it might not be for me, but I can definitely also see how these might appeal to a lot of people. And I actually think that Nike have done pretty well in terms of making a good, faithful tribute to the Air Max 95 sneaker. And the good thing is that you can actually still use it as a football boot. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section right down below. Of course, don't forget that if you want them, you gotta be fast, but you can buy them in the link to Unisport right over there. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, of course. Like the video if you had a good time. With those words, I'll be signing off. Cheerio. That's it.